Hey guys, welcome back to Free Drop Live. Delighted to be joined by Sunshine Tour player Rourke van der Spuy. Rourke, how are you doing, man?
Yeah, Craig, good to see you and good to be on the show. Yeah, all good, eh? Can't complain.
I must be honest, I don't think any of my guests prior to my chat with you has punted the conversation nearly as much as you have. So really, really appreciate that. It's epic.
I think I learned most of that from Mark, probably, or Mark Immelman, I should say. So yeah, at least he taught me something.
Well, it sounds like he was full of compliments about your golf game. We'll get to that in a bit. But yeah, what have you been up to? Just hold on, guys. Sorry, I don't know what happened there. I'll try and add Rourke back as soon as possible. I don't think I've ever seen that. Anyway, let's just see what's going on. Sorry about this, guys. I have no idea what happened there. I'll just give the man a couple minutes to hopefully resolve his technical issues. Let's just see. Hopefully it's not a Wi-Fi issue, because those can always be a bit of a mission. But yeah, super excited for this chat with Rourke. I mean, I didn't really have much knowledge on his sort of career in the game prior to turning pro, so it'll be super cool to uncover a bit of that. But let me just see what's going on here. Yeah, but guys, do you want to, if you don't mind, do you want to just start sending in questions that I can pose to Rourke as soon as we get this underway, or as soon as I've asked him a couple of questions? Any questions you have at all, just fire away, and I'll be sure to ask them at the appropriate time. But thanks again for tuning in. Should be a cool conversation. What's up, dude? Yeah, what's up? Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can. I can hear you perfectly. Yeah. Oh, dude, it was so funny, to be honest. No, it's chill. Um, no, you actually you went out completely. So, but it was hilarious. It's all good. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. Cool. Sweet. Cheers. Bye. All for the comic relief there. That was 100% planned. It really wasn't, but hopefully Rourke will join again in a second or two. There we go. Sick. What? Sorry, guys. We'll get there. We'll get there eventually. I think it's just a bit of an internet issue on Rourke's side, but hopefully he'll resolve that soon. Oh, there. Cool, man. Can you hear me? Dude, I think put your earphones on. This is very, very strange. Sorry, guys. I've never ever had this happen before. Let me just see what the issue could be. Hey, dude, can you hear me now?
I can 100% hear you.
Awesome. Sweet.
Either.
Yeah, technology, hey, it's never our friend.
Yeah, put me on the golf course rather.
Good thing you guys don't use rangefinders, because that may be a problem for you.
Exactly. Okay, are we still live now? We're back into it.
Yes, we are 100% back into it.
Here we go.
Yeah. So what have you been up to? How have you been spending the lockdown? Obviously not on the golf course, but what have you been doing?
It's been very interesting to say the least. Yeah, not much golf at all. I was pretty burnt out coming into the lockdown, luckily, I should say. So I was prepared to take a nice break, and yeah, my 3-week break turned into almost a 2-month break. But I've got a little putting set up in my house here. We're doing a bit of chipping in the garden, and yeah, just kind of doing the basics that we can inside the house.
Yeah, it's certainly been a weird time for everyone. I think, what are we on, like day 75 or 76 now? And I think people are losing their minds a bit. So, but what's the communication been like from the tour? I mean, when are they hoping to get back underway?
Yeah, I think today we're getting some pretty good news. I think from most of the clubs, but yeah, the tour stance has been quiet to say the least. But in respect, it's been because they don't want to kind of enforce or promote our game without the entire golf industry coming back, and that's fair enough. I think an industry as a whole, from the bottom up, like they've been explaining the whole time. So yeah, you kind of got to get the courses open before we can even think about getting out there. It just makes the most sense.
Yeah, and I mean, do you think it's given you some time to sort of reflect on the season and figure out what you need to work on to go from strength to strength next season?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a complete shock to the system in a way. And like I said earlier, I'm in a bit of a burnout from last year and last season. So I needed the break. And I think for me, if I can look at anything in a positive way, so yeah, this can be a positive way to kind of reset, refresh, and kind of completely go back to whatever blank page you want to start on.
Yeah. And did you have any, I mean, hopefully you didn't have any aspirations of going to like any Q schools, because I think those have been scrapped. So were those in your plans?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been doing Q schools almost every year. I think I've done about 3 European, 2 web.com, and an Asian tour over the last 5 years.
Okay.
So anytime I can try and get overseas, I do. But in hindsight, again, this year it might be a good time for me just to refocus and reestablish my roots on the Sunshine Tour and kind of get back in the winner's circle again, I think. So yeah, I think local is going to be a nice time for us this year.
Yeah, and also, I mean, if you have a good enough start to the season, you can make your way into those co-sanctioned events, and then you never know what can happen there.
Exactly. I mean, for us, the co-sanctions are huge. Luckily, with my winners category, it feels like it's been forever. So I got in the beginning of the year when I won a couple of years ago. So I almost got a 3-year kind of wraparound. So yeah, luckily, still got the winners category and going forward this season as well, which helps.
Dude, can you pop your headphones on and see if we can hear you a bit better like that?
Sure thing. Give me 1 second.
No problem. Yeah, we'll hopefully that'll sort of amplify the sound just a touch. We will see. Cool.
Sorry, Craig, is that any better?
Yeah, it seems to be. Seems to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's amazing. I had a chat with Dylan Naidu the other day, and it really sort of brought into focus for me as like a journalist how much emphasis is placed on those events and how it can literally change the course of your entire season. It's wild.
It really is, and especially obviously on our tour as well. I mean, it's you make up huge ground in those events, and like you say, if you win one or can take it to the next level, it opens up doors for most of our European and PGA Tour players. All kind of started with these co-sanctions, so yeah, it's huge.
Yeah. So just before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's sort of go back to the beginning and your roots in the game, and I suppose where you grew up and where you started playing your golf.
Yeah, so Durban boy, not born in Durban, but grew up there from around age of 6, and
Okay.
yeah, played all my junior golf out at Bluff National Park, which was unbelievable. And yeah, made some good connections there, some good friends, lifelong friends there. From there, I moved on to Durban Country Club, and yeah, obviously now up in Joburg. So, but the beginning it was fun. It was junior golf. It was growing up, you Durban vibes and everything like that. So, yeah, good place to learn the game.
Yeah, and Durban Country Club sounds like they are hectic with their like regulations and things. I mean, we played there, I think probably 2009, 10, and a family friend of ours had to buy a pair of white socks because he couldn't wear black socks or something, which because I think he's
Yeah,
very short, so it's like it's a bit weird.
Durban definitely has that colonial, old school, traditional golfing mentality for sure. So yeah, we grew up with
Yeah,
that all in mind. Been
yeah.
told many times by Miss Digby in particular.
And in terms of like coaches and things like that, who like people who were sort of key in your formative years, does anyone kind of stand out?
Yeah, my early formative years, definitely my dad. He's
Okay.
a scratch golfer most of his life as well. I think he still plays off about a 2 or 3 handicap, takes my money all the time. So yeah, my dad was, I mean, it's a golfing family, his dad,
Mm.
etc., brothers, uncles. So yeah, my dad, Gary, was certainly a huge influence in those early development years. And then, yeah, bounced around the usual coaches here and there. And then obviously when I got to college, it kind of kicked off with Mark a bit.
Yeah. And I mean, the one thing, chatting to Mark, the one thing that became readily apparent was that, you know, your rhythm and your tempo has always been an asset of your game. Is that something you instilled from a young age, or is it something that you sort of developed over time?
Yeah, good question. I've never really thought about it. My tempo rhythm, I guess, because it's just comes naturally to me. But
Mm.
yeah, I think what I can remember early on, I always had emphasis on ball striking. And I think my dad, watching him hit balls, he was a ball striker. So that was a lot of my reflection and feedback was from actually the strike. And I
Yeah.
think when you're young and you're really learning to make good contact every time, you do have to have a consistent good tempo. So yeah, hopefully that's what contributed to it.
Yeah, because I think there are a lot of kids who start the game, and that's initially the one aspect they really struggle with. And obviously, if your tempo's out, then you exit the shot too early, and then it can go pear shaped very, very quickly.
Absolutely. I mean, tempo is everything in the game, even as at the highest levels. If you're off by fractions, even at the pro levels, you're going to be struggling anyway. So yeah, tempo is certainly something that you got to find yourself. You got to match it up to your swing and your personality, because there's obviously all these different tempos around the world. So yeah, making sure that you find the right tempo that suits you and grooving that over the
Mm.
years. That's the secret, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. And chat to me a bit about your how your junior golf career panned out, and how much of a focus was golf in your life growing up relative to other sports?
Yeah, I think I always had a soft spot for golf. Like I said, my dad and grandfather, etc., were very keen golfers. My granddad was a nomad, etc. So golf definitely had a place in our family. But yeah, that being said, I played most sports growing up, similar to my dad, I guess. Played hockey, cricket, rugby, soccer and hockey at provincial levels as well. So yeah, a little bit of everything kind of growing up, and then golf kind of took its lead almost going into high school, I think.
Okay.
So when I kind of had to choose, and then injuries become a factor, etc. as well. So I think from about grade 10, I pretty much focused purely on golf. But yeah, up until then, it was a bit of everything.
And do you find that it's actually golf's quite cool because you don't need to rely on anyone else to sort of bring about success?
Yeah. Golf, it's a lonely road, but at the same time, you've got to build your right team around you. But yeah, especially those formative years, those early junior days and stuff, it's you and the golf course, and you out there all day, every day, and finding yourself and finding your swing. So yeah, it's certainly got an interesting character, the game, in that side.
Yeah, because I mean, I think what always used to frustrate me when I used to play cricket was that, you know, irrespective of how good the delivery you bowl is, like if the fielder drops it, then that's an opportunity missed, and it's actually nothing that you could have done differently, but what someone else could have. But and from a like a
absolutely, yeah. So
sorry, there was a bit of a lag there. I didn't know you had actually heard that.
yeah, I got you there. I missed that last part though, but yeah, definitely a difference with team sports.
Yeah, but and from a sort of competitive standpoint, did you win any events or have any particularly good results as a junior that, you know, made you realize that, oh, like I can actually sort of pursue this into, I suppose, college golf and beyond that?
Yeah, I think for me, junior golf times, I was competitive. I was never really a standout or feature player. I kind of went under the ropes a little bit and did my thing. I was into my school and school work as well. So, I mean, I had a fairly good balance. Golf did obviously strike up, and when I started competing at the junior level, I guess, and at least winning a couple junior events here and there, kind of puts those thoughts in your head. And I guess that's where it went on to college from there and kind of progressed. But for me, I always describe it as kind of the way that my journey's been. It's always been through the rungs of a ladder, if you want to call it that. It's always gone one step to the next. I've never really excelled and jumped a couple levels or anything. So in a bigger sense, I think that's helped me kind of stay level and maintain throughout my career, and kind of reach small goals every year, as opposed to having, you know, these ecstatic or outstanding kind of years or seasons that seem out of nowhere almost. So for me, it was always kind of plotted along, which was just the way I saw it, and it worked out so far.
And I suppose in a way that's actually nicer, because if you have too much success too early on, it may become quite sort of overwhelming.
Yeah, you see that all the time, I think, especially with junior golfers. So yeah, luckily I had support from my family and friends, especially, and it was never forced upon me. And yeah, I think I could always maintain or reach goals because they were so realistic at the time. It was never thinking outside of the bigger picture or what wasn't real to me at the time. So yeah, I think that helped, especially going forward.
Yeah. And you know, you went to Troy University in Alabama for 2 years. What was that experience like, and what were the initial adjustments you needed to make, I suppose, firstly from a golf standpoint, but also from a lifestyle standpoint, I guess?
Yeah, so big life changes. I think matriculated in 2007, end of the year, and then hopped on a plane 8 months later and landed in Troy, Alabama. And yeah, culture shock, university for the first time, all these things. So you kind of just get thrown in the deep end out there. But yeah, Troy was great for me. It was a big Division I school. They had a good football program. We played some really good events and traveled to some cool places. So yeah, it certainly put me in good stead having that broad competition before I moved on to Columbus State with Division II.
Yeah. So What was the, out of interest, what was the thinking behind that move?
Yeah, so I think in all honesty, it was the stars kind of aligned again, and Troy played an event and Columbus State played the same events, even though Division 1 and Division 2 don't often play the same events. So that was one thing that happened. And then again, I think we were paired with Columbus State in the final round, and so be it. Mark was walking with Steve Swanepoel at the time, and that's kind of how it all started. So it was, the feelers were put out there and the interest came, and yeah, somehow it all worked out in the end. But yeah, a lot of things happened just by chance, I guess, for me to be in that situation to begin with.
Yeah. So it's interesting because you've been in both Division 1 and Division 2. How would you compare and contrast the quality of golf between or across the two divisions?
Yeah, I think it's the gap is certainly narrowing, especially in as the years go on, even nowadays. Division 2 golf, the strength is certainly getting better and better. And I think especially for international players as well, is Division 2 has a certain attraction to us as well, just the way that the scholarships and all that kind of work as well. So yeah, I think at the top level, obviously your Division 1 schools just have the money and the funding and the backing. So your top D1 schools still get to travel and fly and do all the extra things that the smaller schools can't.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you know the game of golf. I think even at every level, it's golf, and if you put in the work and put in the effort, you're gonna find and get good players, no matter where you Division 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it must have been pretty wild to know that you had the opportunity to work with a coach who has coached, I'm pretty sure, 2 Masters champions in Larry Myers and his brother Trevor. Must be weird to think.
Yeah, exactly. I think at the time when I went to the States, I mean, I had my goals. I went to Troy. I was focused on that, and then yeah, when you see other doors opening up, and to end up in Mark Immelman's company for over 5 years almost, not counting just the schooling, because I stayed on there for a while afterwards. But yeah, it was awesome. So I mean, you can't put a value on some of those experiences that he's been through. So yeah, it was fantastic.
So I've got this little message from him when I mentioned that we were doing this interview, and he said the following of your game. He said, Rourke was a pleasure to have on our team, a quiet and dependable leader who lets his golf clubs talk for him, easy going with a fierce desire inside. I knew he was destined for success in the pro ranks. Every so often, you see a player who looks like he was made to swing a golf club. Rourke was that kind of golfer. Natural, beautiful rhythm, and elegant power. At full flight, he is a joy to watch. What does that mean to you to, I suppose, receive such high praise from, I suppose, a coach of his stature?
Yeah, I mean that's obviously the first time I've heard those words from him as well.
Yeah.
In that sincerity. So yeah, I mean it means a lot. It's nice to have a coach that kind of does see that initial vision for you when you first get there as well. And I mean we worked hard together, building on a lot of those things that he touched on. So yeah, I'm glad that he saw that in me and kind of nurtured that out of me throughout the years. So yeah, very, very nice words. Thanks.
What was he like, quite sort of like, not hands-on, but like would he sort of like offer input occasionally, or would he sort of come to you with an idea and say, yeah, I think you should make X change because it could help you produce a more consistent strike, or whatever the case may be? How was it, quite sort of collaborative, or how did he go about things?
Yeah, I think with the team aspect, it's obviously interesting coaching a golf team because it's an individual sport. So I think we had normally between 10 to 15 guys on our team every given year. So the range does get busy when you're out there with a team. So Mark, what I remember from our practice days, we would kind of have a theme, whether it was a daily theme or a weekly theme or a monthly theme that we would kind of stick to. Obviously all building up to our tournaments and our national championships, etc. So the range sessions were initially team-based with drills or a thought or whatever it might have been for the day or week. And then on top of that, we would get individual lessons that we could kind of book with him.
Okay.
I don't want to say as much as we wanted, but yeah, I mean, he was available for us quite a lot during my time there, which was fantastic to have. So yeah, you'd have the team side where you'd be working as a team in a unit with on general stuff. And then, yeah, when it came to specific stuff, he would, 100% start from scratch if you needed to. So yeah, just like any other coach would kind of build you and build a swing for what you needed.
Yeah, on the podcast you did with him after you won Rookie of the Year, you mentioned a drill that he would have you guys to end off every practice where I think you'd have to hold, what is it? I can't remember the number of 6-footers, but you had to hold a 6-footer on the 18th, whatever, to actually be able to call it a day. How much would you say that sort of cultivated that sort of competitive nature within you, sort of wanting to beat your teammates and basically be the first guy to leave the course type thing?
Yeah, the team structure is actually it's very motivating at the same time. So it's the college. I think there's 5 players start every week. Of the 5, there's 4 guys that get 4 scores count each round. So there's 1 guy that gets kicked out. But I mean, there's pressure amongst the team to perform. With that being said, though, at the same time, if you on par to shoot like a 72 or something, you also playing for the team at the same time. You're not going to take risks. So that aspect of the game is quite interesting. But then also playing and practicing with guys, like you referenced that drill that I talked about. We used to call it the rock as an example. So in our practice rounds, where it started would be the 5 guys that week in our practice rounds. When we got to 18, we would select the last guy, whoever it was that week would be the rock, and he would have to make the last putt. But yeah, basically all 5 of us would have to make about a 6-foot putt in a row. And being the rock, obviously, had that extra pressure with your 4 teammates who have just made it on top of you, expecting you to make it. So yeah, and we wouldn't go home until the rock made that putt. So yeah, small things like that carry with you throughout, and definitely build that fierce and the character to take it into the pro ranks for sure.
Yeah, and I mean that. I'm always super interested to hear about the whole sort of team dynamic on the road. I mean, I suppose sort of traveling to events must be such a vibe, and like, you know, you with your mates, there's banter, there's like their laughs and stuff. It must be a very cool environment to be a part of.
Yeah, absolutely. And you become a family, obviously. And I think when I was at CSU, we had 6 South Africans on the team, if I'm not mistaken, including myself, of which I think we all lived together in the same house. So, I mean, yeah, you take it from the house to the school, to the golf course, to the tournaments, and it kind of just flows like that. But yeah, good banter. We had a nice van that we traveled in, a lot of incentives to get the bucket seats in the front on the way home. The top 2 players would get that on the way back. So yeah, I mean, it is a fun vibe, and I think it's similar to the pro ranks now. You kind of have your travel buddies that you go with and do the same thing. So yeah, it certainly teaches you a lot about that whole travel environment and spending weeks and weeks with just golfers.
Yeah, and I mean, do you think it's sort of being with so many South Africans, did that sort of add to the sort of comfortability factor? Like, would you say it was easier to adjust to life in Columbus? And yeah, I mean, I suppose what I'm getting at is it must be quite weird if you rock up and let's say your coach is American and then there's no one else from your country on the team.
Yeah, I think I mean, it's quite interesting in that side, because obviously there's a cultural difference amongst all of that. So having that South African influence was huge. I think it was certainly a part of my decision when I did move to Columbus State. But that being said, even at Troy, we had Michael Grady, who played on the Sunshine Tour as well, Zimbabwean born, but ex-South African, living over there as well. So he mentored me at Troy for my time there. So yeah, you certainly helps to have some sort of figure like that. And it just turned out that CSU had 6 of us. So yeah.
And from a results point of view on the individual side, I mean, you made that I'm trying to get the wording right, but that Peach Belt conference side in both your both your years there. What were the results that helped you sort of make that team?
Yeah, more consistency than anything. I never won a college event. So kind of like I was talking about going through the rungs of the ladder with junior golf and stuff, nothing really stood out in college golf the same way. But I think I had 3 or 4 second place finishes and a bunch of top 10s. So yeah, the consistency factor certainly builds over. I think my whole game is built around that as well. I'm not a huge risk reward player. I'm more of a steady Eddie, calculated. Let's kind of think about everything, and that's how I've always played. So that's just the way my game suits it. And yeah, I think in college golf, having the team aspect as well, I worked well in a team like that because you that consistency in a team also turns over week after week, I think. So yeah, it certainly helps being consistent.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose there's no use in having like, I don't know, a run-up finish at one event and then having like 3 or 4 sort of, I don't know, like 35th place finishes or 40th or whatever, where it's like, well, okay, that's all well and good, but you're not really doing much for the team. And then
Exactly, and that also starts before.
Yeah. And out of interest, when did you start thinking about turning pro and giving that a go?
Yeah, I think it's always been in the back of my head from maybe high school days. I can remember being 15 or 16 and finding a recruiting agency that kind of helped kickstart my whole American adventure. And I think that was probably the point where it was like, okay, well, if we're going to do America and do college, then, that's, for me, that was the stepping stone to PGA Tour, European Tour, just professional golf in general. So yeah, probably as early as about 15 or 16, I think, realistically.
And did you have any guys on the team who, they were purely there to play college golf and didn't really have any aspirations beyond that from a golf standpoint?
Yeah, I think, again, you don't really realize it unless you actually get to college golf. But yeah, there's dynamics in the team from your star players that you kind of either recruiting or kind of putting on good scholarships to your guys that are walking on, that are local, living in the local town that we would compare being South Africa, obviously. So yeah, you get a whole aspect of different guys. Some guys more serious than others, but I must say, in general, the American college system, it's designed for their athletes to go on to the next level. So most of the guys that we encountered with on my team or other teams, you could tell that they at least had the aspirations to turn pro early on. And whether or not it finishes off that way changes.
Yeah. So you studied a business degree, if I'm not mistaken, eh?
Business management. That's right.
How pumped are you that you haven't had to use that degree just yet, and that you're still living the dream?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, from that side, for sure. I've been fortunate enough that I think I'm into my 5th or 6th year now on Sunshine Tour. So yeah, luckily, touch wood, the season and the career is still going. But yeah, obviously having the degree as backup was paramount.
And do you think it in a way it actually sort of freed you up to play decent golf at Q School and beyond, knowing that you had a backup plan if it didn't quite work out?
Yeah, definitely. I enjoyed being academic, and studying was always going to be an option anyways, which is why the States aligned for me very well. Being able to do the studies and play golf at the same time and do both at a very high level. In the States, they call us student athletes, putting emphasis on the student first, because at the same time, if your school work and grades fail or fall below a certain average, then you're not even eligible to play. So I think Mark instilled that in us as well. It was school always came first, and then golf is secondary. So yeah, certainly a big time to be doing both.
What is your GPA, and how would you what is the South African equivalent from a percentage standpoint?
Yeah, so the GPA system, of a nutshell, works on a 0 to 4 basis. I think 4 being your A or A plus category if you average between a 3.0 and a 4.0. And then your 2 to 3 range is your B. And then anything below a 2.0, whatever would be your C or your failing grades, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember it all back then. But yeah, I think for us, we had to maintain a 2.0 GPA, which I think equivalent in South Africa was about a C or a D passing rate. So
okay.
Yeah, but to be honest, you really couldn't compare the two. The systems were so different. From the feedback that I got with my mates studying over here in South Africa, the American system is certainly a little bit different in many aspects.
Yeah, I've heard similar accounts like that. But how much of a role or rather, how much did you lean on Mark for advice about what pro life was or tour life was going to be like when you got out there?
Yeah, and it's a great question, that, because not many people realize what having a coach like Mark Immelman was like, because you kind of take it for granted at Division II small college in Columbus, Georgia, has someone with Mark's experience. So we often talked about it from, day one. I remember we did swing changes my first year I got there. Not really, we did swing changes with a plan in mind, knowing that in 2-3 years, the work that we've done now will prepare me for the pro ranks. And yeah, Mark was always on about that. We kind of always had that theme that, this was PGA prep school. And if we sacrifice a year, even my first year when I was doing those swing changes to get worse results, we knew in the long run it was the better off thing. So yeah, he would talk me through all those things, and he would never force anything on me. It was always like, this is what I see, and where do you see yourself going, and are you willing to do these sacrifices, etc. So it was very two-way communication all the time, and very open. And yeah, he was a great person to feed off all that experience that he has, being a coach on the tour and seeing the pros and stuff like that. So yeah, it was certainly a huge influence in helping us prepare.
And from a swing change standpoint, I know I've chatted to a couple of people who, they would be told one thing from their South African coach and then go to the States and their college coach would say something completely different. Would you say that if you did actually have a coach here, I don't really know what your situation was, but would you say that things sort of matched up pretty well, like philosophies and stuff?
Yeah, I think, Mark was the first person that I really kind of, like you say, matched up, if you want to call it that. So the way he thought and the way I thought and the way he communicated with me was quite easy. I think a lot of the time, the communication between the coaches is the biggest thing. You can try and get your student to do one thing, but there's 10 different ways to say it. And how quickly can you get your player to understand it? So from that side, Mark was brilliant. He was very scientific based in a way. So, in a way that he taught us, or taught me specifically, to understand my golf swing and ball flight, especially, that I could get to a point on the course that I could make adjustments purely from seeing my ball flight. So yeah, simple things like that, which actually help you to coach yourself when you need to. And I think those were very important lessons.
Yeah, that's epic. Because I think there are a lot of people who, like, sure, their coach tells them what to do on the range or whatever, but then they don't fully grasp the scope of what needs to be done. So then when things go pear-shaped, they can't. There's literally nothing they can do. So it must have been quite sort of comforting having that knowledge and that ability to figure things out for yourself.
Definitely. I think as a golfer, if you can understand the things that you're doing in your swing to produce a certain ball flight or shape, it all comes down to science. So yeah, the more we can understand those things as golfers, then we can correct ourselves on the courses. And yeah, I think the viewers don't realize, when you're playing 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks in a row, sometimes, you fatigue, the swing changes, you go through different areas. You can be hitting a 20-yard fade the first week in Zambia, and then you end up at Humewood 7 weeks later and you hitting a low snap hook, So your ball flow, everything changes all the time, and being able to do those small adjustments week in and week out is half the battle, half the time.
Yeah.
You don't have your coach available with you 24/7.
No, for sure. So, sort of shifting to Q School, tell me about what that experience was like, and what the biggest learning curves you underwent were during that week.
You're talking about Q School specifically?
Yeah. So
in
2015
in South Africa, or
yeah, you see, so that's actually interesting that you said that, because you actually tried overseas first and then came back, or how did that work?
Yes. Q School just, automatically for any golfer, it just brings back chills in the back of your spine, whether they're good or bad experiences. So yeah, my Q School runs started in America. Straight after college, I did web.com. Got through the second stage, missed out, came to Sunshine Tour a few months later, tried Sunshine Tour in 2014, my first time around, and performed poorly, terribly. Was back to the drawing board thinking, okay, well, I've finished my degree now and I've done 2 Q schools already, and now I've got nowhere to play. So I did the local circuit IGTs in SA for a little bit, then was lucky enough to go back to the States and play some mini tours that side as well. Did web.com Q School again in America for my third attempt. Again, got through first stage and then missed out again. Came back to South Africa and was fortunate enough to get through in 2015 on Sunshine Tour on my fourth attempt, pretty much. So yeah, it's a long road, and I think a lot of people don't realize that it's that you get one chance every year as a golfer to perform in a Q School, and you know that if you have one bad round or one bad hole, even it can destroy that. So yeah, Q Schools are a journey amongst themselves. I can tell you stories for days about Q Schools.
Hopefully we'll get to hear those in a bit, but it must have been super cool to finally get through in 2015, at Sunshine Tour School.
Yeah, so got off to a good start that year particularly, and I think getting off to good starts in Q Schools makes a huge difference just to take off that initial pressure. You don't really want to be fighting from day one. I think I finished third at Q School that year, so yeah, automatically that you treat it as a tournament. There's over 200 players playing, and when you finish third out of all those players, it kind of gives you that belief as well to know, okay, I didn't just scrape in, but I actually performed well in a tournament. So yeah, it was a big moment, that 2015 Q School, for sure.
And then is it like a mad scramble to get everything organized to then go to your first event? Like, what was the turnaround time like between Q School and your first event?
Yeah, I can't even remember exactly, but it is quick. It's normally, it can vary from 1 week to normally under a month. So either way, it is a quick turnaround. And obviously going through Q Schools and failing, you kind of and maybe that just becomes a back set, and you're like, hey, let's just get through Q School first. And once we're done with this, then we'll worry about that. At the same time, though, college golf prepares you for all of that anyway. So it was quite an easy transition going from, studying and traveling and playing golf and routine and scheduling and all that to filling in on the tour. It was quite an easy transition.
That's actually, yeah. So, would you say then that in a way, people that go to college first and get that experience first are better off than those who, I don't know, maybe go to Q School like their first year out of school or something?
Yeah, I think it's everyone's different, and I think I give the same information or same advice, I think, to anyone that's come to me asking about America. It's not for everyone. I know that. So I've seen people go to the States, last a few months and come home, etc., etc. So everyone has different experiences. Same thing about the timeline. When I was 18, for an example, I wasn't ready to turn pro. I knew that. And I knew that where my goals were going to be aligned, that college was going to be the best option for me. So yeah, hard to really put a picture on it. But for anyone that's 50-50 maybe, my opinion, yeah, college can't hurt you. It's going to only put more experience and hair on the back of your tongue, if you need to call it that. So yeah, it's going to make you stronger in the long run and prepare you for the pro ranks for sure.
That must be the DHS education coming through there? Because I've literally never heard that expression in my life. Must
I
obviously
think I
be-
just made. I think I started a new hashtag, so we'll see if it starts trending. But you know us Durban guys anyways. I think we make up slang on the go, so yeah.
No, that's superb. That is great. But yeah, so let's sort of talk about that first win in sorry, let me just find my notes. So what I found interesting about that was you were off 3 hours and 40 minutes before, I want to say, Merrick Bremner. He finished second to you. So I mean,
Correct.
was it literally just a situation of like you finish and then you wait for, I mean, you must have waited quite a while before you actually knew what the outcome was.
Yeah, I can remember that day minute by minute almost. So, I mean, I got done with my round. I was lucky that all those stars aligned that week for second round being cancelled with the wind and getting off early on the last day and not really being in the mix of the final group, etc. So, with all that happening and then finishing early, I think I went back to my hotel or my house that we were staying at, packed up my stuff. I remember going to KFC and having a zinger burger, not really kind of just like thinking about having to go back and potentially be in a playoff or something like that. Yeah, I made my way back to the golf course, sat around the clubhouse for an hour or two. And that's when Merrick started making the charge. So up until then, I was quite relaxed. But yeah, when Merrick started making those birdies, I made my way down to the range, and yeah, then it kind of started getting real again. So yeah, that KFC zinger burger was certainly sitting in my stomach, waiting for that playoff. I can tell you that much.
How were you trying to mentally prepare for? Because I presume it would have been surely your first playoff experience or one of your first playoff experiences at any level. I mean, what was going through your mind?
Yeah, I think before that, I've been in one playoff, and it was a junior event when I was about 16 at South Broom, and I lost the playoff. I clearly remember anyway. So, yeah, I mean, you kind of don't really prepare for playoffs until you actually get to them. So, yeah, luckily to date, that's the only playoff that I've ever been in, and I'm 0-1. So, yeah, hopefully I can have more to say when I'm in my next playoff then. But, yeah, I think until then, you to be honest, you're really hoping that you don't have to go to a playoff. I think that's the first thought that any golfer would have. So yeah, it's a strange one.
Yeah, it must be weird sort of knowing it's like one of those other, like, unless you're playing in the final group with someone, it's like one of those unique scenarios where you know exactly what you need to do to actually get it done.
Yeah, so especially that week, I mean, having that round cancelled was huge for me. I mean, I was my first year on tour. I was about 4 or 5 months into the season, performed, maybe made a couple cuts here or there, but you know, nothing had reached out. You're still thinking about losing your card. So all these things are going through your mind every week. And then you get to a course like Fish River, which I have experienced growing up with friends and family and stuff. So had a good vibe that week. And yeah, I think just once everything happens and the way it happens like that, it's kind of a blur half the time. But yeah, it's just a really cool experience and fortunate that it turned out the way that it did with all those stars aligning for me.
Yeah, and then was that sort of around the time when you started thinking that Rookie of the Year honors were a realistic possibility?
Yeah, I think it changed overnight almost. I mean, you go from struggling to keep your card and worrying to, yeah, having a winners category, getting into the co-sanctions, not having to really think about the next year and a half for me at that point. And then, of course, Rookie of the Year comes into it as well. I mean, you jump up from nowhere to in contention. And yeah, it certainly became a theme for the rest of the year. I don't think I played on it too much, but yeah, it was certainly coming down the last 2 or 3 weeks when I started really thinking, okay, well, it's a good battle between me and Xander Lombard at the time. And yeah, it was fun. So yeah, glad that it worked out again in my favor.
Have you ever been so pumped for an Oak missing a cut as you were when I think when he missed the Cape Town Open cut, then it was sort of a done deal heading into Leopard Creek?
Yeah, that I mean, Xander obviously has had a fantastic career, and I mean, he can probably laugh about this as well. So yeah, it was a good battle at the time. I remember Cape Town, I think he did miss the cut, if you're not mistaken, and that was a factor going into Leopard Creek because I don't think he was exempt, but I know that there was a good chance that he was maybe going to get a sponsor's invite. So I think up until that week, knowing that Zander had the amateur career and junior career that he did, being in contention for Rookie of the Year, a lot of the guys kind of thought, well, he has a good chance of getting this invite. So yeah, it was never really over until that week teed up at Leopard Creek, and unfortunately for Zander, it didn't turn out the way that he wanted. But yeah, at least it took the pressure off me at Leopard Creek, and before I teed it up, it was already signed and done almost.
Yeah, and tell me about the opportunities that kind of presented themselves as a result of that. So obviously the SA Open was a big one. What was that? If I'm correct, that was your first one as well. I mean, again, that must have been a super surreal experience.
Yeah, most definitely. I think again, it goes through that the rungs of the ladder, kind of like get on tour, get your card, have that win, and that win opens up more doors, and then you get a taste of European tour events and the lifestyle of what those co-sanctions mean to you and stuff like that. And yeah, then it puts a perspective into the whole tour going forward, and the emphasis that if you're playing in these co-sanctions and finishing top 50 on the order of merit or in a winners category, that's where you actually have things to start playing for. So yeah, it's massive.
Yeah, so obviously one of your funnier moments from your career actually came at the SA Open. I think, when was it? Was it this year? It was this year actually, with where you hold the approach on 18, and Louis and all of his innocents said, "Oh, yeah, no, he's reaching for his sandwich. Oh no, it's a smoke. Sorry." It must have been hilarious looking back at that clip when you eventually saw it.
Yeah, I mean, and even at the time, I didn't even think it was going to be on camera or anything. I know the weather was changing, and we were kind of actually rushing because we thought the storm was pulling in. So the shot wasn't rushed, but it was like a shot to try and get the hole done with and stuff like that. So with all that being said, watching it on TV and reaching for the cigarettes and having Louis have those comments, it certainly put a comical twist on it. I think if it was a sandwich, then at least I'm going to have about 6 or 7 sandwiches per round,
Oh, that's awesome, dude. But here's a comment from Alfred Sutton saying that he actually remembers when you made the cut at the SA Open this year. I mean, what was that? Yeah, like, talk us through what it's like to continue making that progression and taking that next step.
Yeah, and again, you start off by getting into a co-sanction, then, like you say, then your goals change from, okay, now I'm here, now let's make the cut. And then once you've made a cut in a couple co-sanctions, then you're thinking, let's have a top 20, top 10s, etc. And it kind of goes from there. So yeah, what Alfred was talking about now with that putt from this year, it meant the world to me, that putt. I think I even made a social media post about it, talking about the importance of that 4-foot putt for me. It's after 5 on tour, you have your ups and downs. Last year was a really tough season for me. So yeah, having that breakthrough this year, making the cut, was just at least something to kind of reaffirm and just reassure you that, okay, well, it can still be done. So yeah, watching that putt, I remember those emotions from that 4-foot putt after 2 rounds grinding out there at Rand Park, which is a brutal course to begin with. And yeah, the emphasis from that hole out the day before to shooting 7 under to struggling on Firethorn, and then having that all culminate and coming down to literally a straight 4-foot putt, the rock drill that we did at Columbus State every single year. And yeah, I think I even remember doing my pre-shot routine and thinking, you know what, it's like every other putt. This is the rock drill. Commit to it and make your stroke. And yeah, that's kind of where it all stems from. So yeah, I think I definitely fed off all that advice from those college years just to make that putt.
That's amazing, dude. I'm sure Mark would be so pumped to hear that. I mean, he probably doesn't listen to the Free Drop podcast, but maybe one day, maybe you can slip it maybe you can send it his way. But yeah, I mean, shifting again to your second win in 2018, you won early on. I mean, it's what the first or second event of the season, and with it, nearly 350K. Tell me about how that frees you up from a financial point of view for the rest of the year. Because I mean, I'm sure you pretty much locked up your card already.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, the money is, yeah, it's valuable in your pocket, but it's also valuable on the order of merit. And yeah, sometimes that order of merit ranking and that really frees you up even more so than the money in your pocket. Excuse me. But yeah, I mean, obviously having that win and that cash injection for the rest of that year opened up doors that again allowed me to go overseas and try Q schools. And even though that didn't go to plan, it's still experience that you build on every year, and you just add layers to this brand and person that you're becoming out there. So yeah, all massive things.
Yeah, and it's also, I think, what's amazing through these experiences is that you giving people memories to cherish of their own. So I mean, here's a classic example of just how Alan watched you play in that coming down the stretch in Zambia. And I mean, clearly I'm just trying to read it, sorry. I mean, again, like, just, I suppose, giving people something to like talk about afterwards, like over a beer or whatever, and really sort of think about in the months and years to come must be very, very special.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, you all these memories that you build on tour and everything like that, it all culminates into, yeah, just being the best version you can be every year and coming out there and doing your job at the end of the day. So yeah, all good memories, all the ups, all the downs. It certainly is a roller coaster out there.
But it keeps things interesting, because I suppose if it was all sort of plain sailing and stuff, it would probably get quite boring quite quickly. I mean, it must be super boring to be Brooks Koepka at the moment, because things are chilled for that heck.
Absolutely. I think that's the different layers of professional sport, not only just golf, but I mean, you have your stars and your athletes that kind of shine the light for everyone. That's everyone's expectations. But deep down, there's a whole bunch of us at the next, or at the level just below them, that are fighting for survival and having really, really interesting experiences week in and week out, whether it's traveling stories or golf stories or ups and downs. It's just, it's certainly an adventure.
Is it quite reassuring to know that, as you say, you didn't have the best of seasons this past season, but you still finished 77th on the money list or whatever, which is quite comfortably inside the top 100. Is it quite cool to know that even golf that is not necessarily or not even close to your best, but it can still sort of get you through some tough times?
Yeah, absolutely. I think feeling established, if that's what the word that you want to call it, certainly helps. And last year was a tough year, and like you said, if you put a perspective and hindsight into it, then yeah, it could obviously have been a lot worse. So to finish 77th and have a bad year for me, or at least a much worse year than the year before, where I kind of excelled or had my best year on tour. That's kind of just having that extra level to you. So yeah, it's certainly plays a big part of it, for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, have you
I think I
highlighted
lost you there. You back? There we go.
Yeah, sure. Have you highlighted any parts of your game that sort of let you down last season, and that you need to sort of rectify heading into the new campaign?
Yeah, last season, again, golfers, we love to make excuses, but I sprained an ankle the season before, and having that sprained ankle injury, I think I developed a lot of bad habits in my golf swing that for me as a player who loves to hit a fade, as an example, I've played a fade as a go-to my entire career. Last year, playing with I want to call it an unnatural draw, even though it was natural at the time. It wasn't natural in my mind. That was tough. That was tough. So I think coming out this year, being injury free and kind of having these 2 or 3 months to unlearn all those bad habits that are generated over that season is going to be a big step going forward.
Yeah, and
Hopefully.
I think that's something that often isn't. I mean, there's a lot that players go through that the sort of casual fan or even someone who's really into it wouldn't really be aware of. I mean, like if you don't really talk about it to like the media or whatever, you can just struggle and someone can be like, oh, that oak's playing terribly, but there's something far deeper than just what you see on a scorecard.
Absolutely. And I think that's where, us having physios and, looking after your physical appearance, or not appearance, but your physical performance out there is massive, because week in and week out, those small niggles here or there, or if it's a bigger injury or a sprained ankle as an example, like you say, the viewers don't often know all those behind the scenes things that are going on. So it certainly creates a different layers as to why guys are performing or why they're not. And I think it's the same way when we watch the PGA Tour. You see guys perform incredibly well for 3 or 4 months, and then something happens or whatever, but you don't really know the stories behind it. So there's certainly a lot of juggling that goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah. So looking ahead, what are your plans? Like, what are your goals for next season? Is there anything you've sort of circled? Obviously, another win would be nice, but anything else? I mean, obviously, you seem to be very much like a consistency-based player, but is there anything you've figured out?
Yeah, so using this break to really kind of get on top of the mental game and, like you say, formulate a plan and put your goals in place. It has helped me kind of take a step back, especially having my worst season last year. So to be able to have these 2 or 3 months to put things in place, I think if anything, it's helped me realize that maybe it's time to refocus on the Sunshine Tour again. So I've been going overseas a lot these last 2 or 3 years, having that winner's exemption in mind, knowing that I can sacrifice tournaments or money here or whatever it might be to go overseas, because I have the exemption to fall back on. Whereas this year, that changes again. It's my last year of exemptions, so I know I have to perform on the tour now to set myself up for next year. So get back into the winner's circle on Sunshine Tour is the first goal, because having that winners category helps you open up doors to go overseas, as for my example, at least.
And from a coaching perspective, who do you bounce ideas off Mark, or how do you go about things these days?
Yeah, so Mark is still a big influence, and we stay in touch as much as we can. Obviously, he's much busier these days, doing all the things that he's doing. But I've been seeing Gavin Levinson over the last year or two in SA as well. So Gavin, very similar to Mark. Gavin being an ex-player as well. I can talk to Gavin about the game for hours. And I think the role that me and Gavin had working on it last year and the year before that was more of a mentorship thing, if anything. He knows the golf swing, sure, but he knows the golf game a whole lot better, and he's had performances and experience out there. And that's what I also look for in a coach. It's not just the technical side. It's actually the tell me what to do on the 18th hole when I've got a one-shot lead and I'm playing at Augusta, as an example. That's what I need from a coach. You can't teach that unless you've been there.
Yeah, 100%. So just a few sort of quick fire questions, and then we'll let you get on with your day. So I think this one actually comes from your dad, wanting to know, what's your best caddy experience?
Oh, Gary van der Spuy, hands down. He's been there for all of them. Obviously, my dad might be watching. Caddy experience, obviously coming from my dad, who's been on the bag a few times. Definitely Q School 2015 Sunshine Tour. My dad was on the bag for that, and it was a big moment for both of us. A lot of a lot of nerves were shed on that back nine, I can tell you that much, even knowing I had a pretty cushy shot advantage as well. So yeah, there you go.
That must have been so special, bro, to have him there. It must have been insane.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, having just the golfing family in general has been awesome, and my dad has obviously been both my parents have been a huge influence on that. But yeah, having my dad on my bag numerous times, he's done co-sanctions. We've been to Mauritius, we've been to America, we've been to Europe, we've done SAQ schools twice. So I mean, he's done some big events, and if I ever feel like I need the call up for someone to be on the bag when I need it the most, he's certainly in line for that. So yeah, he knows that though.
And it must be so cool to kind of have that support structure. I mean, here's another comment which sums it up perfectly. I suppose a lot of people don't realize the sort of mental aspect that goes into playing the game professionally, and you know, having people that really sort of are able to help you through the tough times and things like that, off the course when you're struggling a bit is really special.
Definitely, I think that's especially when you're younger as well. It's a huge part of learning the game of golf, and I was very fortunate to have a father that understood golf. Like I said, I think he played off a scratch handicap for most of his life, so he knows what golf can be like at the highest level, but he also knows that you can shoot 80, 90 or whatever it might be, you know, depending on your different levels. Golf is like that. So having him reassure me after bad rounds and not take it out on me was certainly a huge help growing up. Kept me in love with the game, you know.
Yeah, because I mean that's so important, because I think, you know, if you do have a couple of sort of tough stretches on the course, like from a result standpoint, it can become very lonely and very difficult to sort of keep that love for the game.
Absolutely, yeah. And when you shoot 75 as an example as a pro, whatever, and everyone's like, well, what happened? Why this? What happened? What was this? And then if I speak to my dad, it's just like a 3-word conversation. It's like, well, golf happens sometimes, and that's it. Move on, wake up tomorrow and try again. So yeah, having that mindset certainly helps prolong your career as well, I think.
Yeah, that's amazing, dude. So in light of our conversation on Facebook yesterday, my next question is, what is your favorite Anchorman quote?
Probably the glass cage of emotion, because if you play golf at any sort of level, you feel like you are constantly in that glass cage of emotion. And you often want to punt Baxter. I often want to.
Oh my word, sorry, I need to recompose myself. But jeepers, okay, and you've been on tour for 5 years, so what's your favorite tour stop of the year?
Great question. Top of my head, Leopard Creek.
Okay, that's
I don't think I have to explain that either.
No, bit of a tough one to. I mean, it's quite a difficult course though, so that's quite an interesting one. What's your best?
And I mean, sorry, say that you broke up there, Craig.
No, I said, what's your best result you've had at Leopard?
I have made the cut twice. I think probably in the 40s is probably my best result though. But yeah, it's a course where it's not getting any easier either. So I think it was my rookie year where I probably had my best result.
Yeah, that'd be quite a cool place to get your first Euro win there.
Cheapers, yeah. I mean, you've seen the players that have come through there as well. And I mean that course, it's something special about that. And I think when the internationals say it's so special, but even for us South Africans who grew up in the country, we know how special that place really is for a South African standpoint, I think.
Yeah. No, that's epic, dude. And your go-to post-round meal or drink?
I've got to say it's a Coke with ice and lemon. If it's a hot day especially, yeah, can't go wrong with a Coke. I try and limit myself to one a day, so I normally try and enjoy it after the round and get some sugar back in.
Yeah, that's 100%. I thought, I mean, most people normally go with something else, but that's actually a nice sort of thing. And the sponsors would be stoked as well, which is epic.
Oh, of course, I should have said water. I think maybe it's obviously it's water. I mean,
And do you have any sort of pre-round or mid-round superstitions?
Superstitions. Well, I've got 13 tattooed on me. So off the bat, I want to say I'm not superstitious. But for me, my superstition, if I had to call it, would just be routine and time. So whether it's before the round or during the round, I really always rely on my routine, especially leading up to the day. You know, I'm quite superstitious, if you want to call it that, about making sure I'm never feel rushed. That's my most important thing.
Yeah, that's key, I'm sure. And if you had one course to play every day for the rest of your life, which would it be?
I've had this conversation with so many people, and I think my girlfriend put it best in perspective for me recently. I would choose Durban Country Club as an example. Obviously, there's so many courses in the world that you could choose from, but I would choose a course that can play differently every single time you're out there. So if I'm going to play one course for the rest of my life, I might sacrifice this or that. But Durban Country Club is a great example of a course where you can play it with no wind, you can play it with a 40K wind, you can play it with a 20K wind, you can play it with a northeaster, a southeaster, you can play it in rain. So, I mean, a course like that changes every single time you play it. So, yeah, just to keep it creative, it would have to be probably a coastal course of some sort. Durban Country Club comes to mind.
That's epic. It may be minus, or after I played there a couple of years ago with a family friend, it's certainly minus a couple banana trees because he hacked a couple after a couple of poor recovery shots. But dude, how can we follow you on social media?
Social, most popular would be my Instagram, and Facebook and Twitter every now and then as well. But yeah, Instagram, _Rourke, and then Twitter, Rourke Gray.
You're actually quite prolific on Twitter. I didn't realize. I mean, I was trying to find that on the Mark podcast, and I was scrolled through like 2,100 tweets or something. It's wild.
I think Twitter becomes like that. It was so under the radar before, I think, even Facebook and Instagram, for me at least, and it's kind of taken a backseat. But I think with Eddie Pepperell being so popular on there, I think that's one of the reasons why I'm still on Twitter. So yeah.
No, he's awesome to follow. But now comes the shameless self-promotion part of the podcast, guys. If you enjoyed the chat with Rourke, which I'm sure you all did, please give Free Drop a follow. I really want to try and give exposure to guys who are like really, really solid people and also quality golfers. So on Facebook, Free Drop at Free Drop blog, and then on Instagram at Free Drop _podcast. Hopefully we'll have Rourke back on the podcast when he gets his first, if he gets his Euro Tour card or his first Euro win or his next Sunshine Tour win, whatever. It would be super, super cool to have you back on the podcast, bro.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Craig. I appreciate it. It's always great having a chat, especially in these times as well. So yeah, happy to talk golf whenever, and all the best to Free Drop, and looking forward to watching the podcast grow in the future.
Sweet, dude. Appreciate it. Cheers, man.
Awesome. Thanks, Craig. Appreciate it, man.
Cheers, bye.
Ciao.